Alright, today I'm going to show you how to use the 3D printers around the Forge. There'll be time codes in the description for the MakerBot, AnkerMake, Ultimaker, and pre-print setup for each printer. Alright, to use a MakerBot 3D printer, first you need to go to the MakerBot Cloud Print site and import your STL file from a USB provided or otherwise. To arrange Fred manually, you just need to select him and move him around. You can also use a Smart Arrange tool to move multiple models neatly to the center of the plate, or just hit center model on build plate if there's only one model. To rotate him manually, you just move the cursor to the arrows on the model and select the ring of the correct axes you want to rotate, and just move it to the desired position. To rotate automatically, select Place Face on build plate, which allows you to select a specific face of your 3D model to be positioned directly on the build plate. This ensures that the chosen face is laid flat and properly aligned, and this improves the stability and quality of the print. The angle at which the model is printed can greatly improve the quality of the print. For example, printing cylinder standing on its end rather than on its side, so the grain of the print follows the curve of the model instead of against it. It's just something to think about. Anyways, if your model is not to scale, you can increase or decrease the size. Right now we're using millimeters, so I just changed it to 50, and you can see that he's a lot bigger, but we just undid it with a Control Z. Then you can choose whether you want a support type, and for those that don't know, support refers to a support structure that helps print overhangs, and they can be easily removed by breaking them off once the model is printed. Next, you can click Print Preview and wait for it to slice the model. It's very important that when it's done slicing, you make sure that there's a raft to help the print stick to the base plate, and that you added supports if need be. If not, you can just quit Preview to adjust your model. His name is Fred, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that, but before hitting print, you got to make sure that you're using the right printer, one that isn't occupied, and then we can just click Print, and that's onto pre-print setup. For the Ultimaker, we're going to use the Ultimaker Cura. Once you've uploaded your STL file, by clicking the file button at the top left, you can start making any adjustments if needed. The Ultimaker produces high quality prints, so if you're making something that needs to look nice, the Ultimaker is the best choice. Just be aware that it takes the longest out of all the printers at the Forge. To move the model around, you just got to select the Move button, the first button on the toolbar, and to move them back, I just right-clicked and selected Arrange All Models. To scale your model to the right size, select the Scale tool, and I'm just going to set him to 50 millimeters and Control Z to undo. To use the Rotate tool, just select whatever axis you want to rotate. Rotating a model can reduce the amount of supports needed for a structure and also reduce the print time. To lay a model flat on the build plate, just select the middle button when using the Rotate tool. Since he's already laying flat on the build plate, nothing really happened, so in a second I'm just going to rotate Fred back to where he was. You can choose what kind of profile you want, like if your print is a draft, but balance works just fine. If you need your print to be stronger, you can change the infill density, but 20% is still pretty tough for most circumstances, especially for artistic purposes. Next, I recommend that you click the slider for support to help the printer with any overhangs. For a small print like this, normal support type is good, but for large, more complicated prints, I recommend the tree support type. Placement settings can be either one. If you choose tree support, then I would select touching base plate, but if you choose normal, then everywhere is fine. Then just double check to make sure all your settings are the way you want them. Once you're ready, click Slice at the bottom right and wait. Once it's done, I'll let you know how much time the print will take, and then hit Save to Disk to save to a USB to transfer the file from the desktop to the Ultimaker to print. And that's pretty much it. The AnkerMake is the fastest of all of our 3D printers. Although it may look a little confusing with all the settings, it fundamentally works the same as all the other programs. First, you need to import your STL file. We'll start by exporting little Fred here. To do this, simply click on the File button and select your STL file from the USB or otherwise. Once imported, you'll see the model appear on the build platform in the software. You can move the model around manually by selecting them and dragging them around, or you can just use the Arrange option to move the model to the center of the build plate. To rotate the model to your desired orientation, use the Rotate tool, which can reduce the need for support structures. Since we need him to be on his little base thing, I'm going to undo the rotation with a Control-Z. If your model isn't to scale, you can use the Scale option, which allows you to modify the model's size. I have the unit set to millimeters. I'm going to be setting him to 50. This can be particularly useful if you need the model to fit specific dimensions. And I'm just going to use Control-Z to get him back to 32.2 millimeters. If you need a model to be placed on a specific face, you can use the Place on Face tool to place Fred on any of his faces that can be selected from. Since Fred is round, he doesn't have too many faces to choose from, so I'm just going to pick one on his side. This tool is mainly used to place models flush with the build plate. The print settings can help with the print quality and speed of the print, but right now we're using normal quality as we don't need anything fancy. For supports, I'm changing the settings from easy to expert. The first tab is going to be layers and parameters, and they don't need to be messed with, so we're going to look for a support material tab and click generate support material. The AnkerMake doesn't really need a ref for the model, so I don't really need to mess with that. The rest of the settings are fine the way they are, so I'm just going to leave them alone before checking anything is set to default settings. All these settings can be confusing, so don't be afraid to ask for help from Jared or anyone else working around the forge. Once you're ready to print your model, you're going to select the Slice Now button at the bottom right of the screen. While the model slices, I need to explain the difference between the MakerBot, AnkerMake, and the Ultimaker. You cannot print directly from the desktop to the AnkerMake and Ultimaker like you can with the MakerBot. You need a USB to move your sliced file from the desktop to the printer. Once it's done slicing, export to your USB using the export button on the bottom right, and that's it.